Hello there, this is Rom Wills coming back at you with yet another car video. The class factor in black male-female relationships. Now, first of all, let me be clear. This is going to be one of those few occasions in a few years. I do so every now and then, but where I'm specifically focused on an issue in black male-female relationships. Most of my stuff is, really all of it, except for this one, is applicable, that's my word today, to like any place on the globe. Let me just be clear, man, anywhere can use it. But this is something a little bit bigger because anybody's familiar with my background know I talked about overall relationships going back to the 1990s. In fact, I had to be convinced to even write a book for men. It was several men coming to me saying, hey, we need a book. So this is really old hat. But I said I wanted to address something because, the big thing now is about that TV celebrity, Ebony K. Williams, telling Iyanla Van Sant that she would only date the owner of a bus line or something like that, but she wouldn't date a bus driver. And oh man, that got people hot. And all of that. And I didn't think anything of it. And I'm going to explain why I didn't think anything of it. Because a lot of people felt like she was putting down bus drivers and everything. No. She was just expressing her social class. See, one of the problems in relationships, and I had quoted this writer, George Sabiro, who wrote this book, Money Issues in Black Male-Female Relationships. And he said any discussion about black male-female relationships that doesn't take into account social class is a joke. And I'm saying the same thing. And I've talked about it often. Not the only one. Shout out Master Teacher BGS on the book he's supposed to be working on. The Octane models. That's all about social class. Cousin T-Talk, he talks about social class. You can't really have a serious conversation. Because if you understand social class, then things make sense. That's why I said even that Pookie and Ray Ray thing that's talked about a lot. Bougie women don't really mess with Pookie and Ray Ray. That's more lower class women, working class, and the lumpen proletariat will mess with Pookie and Ray Ray. Maybe some women who maybe have a degree, but they're not quite professionals. Maybe. But a Pookie or a Ray Ray to get attention from someone in Ebony K. Williams' class, which BGS would call a 92 octane. Some professional sociologists would call it black upper middle class, and even really touching on just the black upper class, touching on it. I'll get into some distinctions later. Well, no, nah, they ain't messing with no pookies. They ain't messing with no street dudes. The only exception might be is if they came from that environment. But that's just a real thing in social class. And let me just be clear, first of all, because sometimes you talk about something with black relationships, somebody act like that's not the case in white relationships. Oh, they even more class conscious. I lost count of how much trash more upper middle class and upper class whites will talk about their cousins. They will use the word white trash way more than somebody black would. They don't like their cousins. And it's a class thing. It's even like more pronounced there, and really all over the world. The class thing is a big thing, just period. Indeed, a lot of the economic stuff going on right now is really a form of class warfare, but that's a discussion for my Money Matters channel or even my Deep Thought channel. Talking specifically about the black community, a lot of the relationship issues are just a class thing. And let me just be clear, class is more than just how much money you're making. Hell, you got someone, Cousin T-Talk would call them in the flex economy, the underground economy, who are millionaires, but they low rent. They class-wise, they wouldn't be considered upper class. No matter how much money they make, it's more than money. Money plays a factor, but it's more than money. Indeed, you have a lot of blue collar rather, men and women, mostly men though, who make more money than some who are in that upper class. So it's more than money. It plays a factor, but it's also about a mindset. See, when we talk about class, and any professional sociologist can back this up. Any professional sociologist, somebody with a lay opinion, that's just a lay opinion. Anybody who's a professional sociologist, I can send this video to a professional sociologist and they will corroborate everything that I'm talking about. The thing is, when we talk about class, it's not just money, but it's lifestyle, it's attitudes, it's how you approach the world, it's behavior, all of that. That's what the difference is. That's the difference. And really, when you look at relationships, we talking about the key word to it is relate. Relate. And it's very much on a class basis. Very much so. Now, I'm going to say this from what is my qualification to even talk about this. Well, one, life experience. Now, two, had plenty of sociology classes and really learning about it in college. And, had a liberal arts education, so you learn a little bit about everything anyway. But you just simply learn about it, because actually in some political classes I learned about the class issues, because one of my favorite classes was Revolution and Development from a prominent professor. And you learn how much even that is affected by class. Like a lot of stuff now is class. Everything political, everything is class. So you have a different behavior, different ways you're looking at things. And hell, you can even break it down to biology, because upper middle class to upper class people tend to be healthier. Well, one, they will focus more on it. Charles Murray, who wrote about that, and also Andrew Yang. They wrote about like some class differences in books that they've written. Like Charles Murray had said, you'd be hard pressed to find like ashtrays in upper middle class to upper class home. They don't smoke like that. So it's a lot of little things. Now, as I was going to get into, I know this just from my life. Told you, like I was born in LA, spent a little bit of time once my parents divorced. Spent a little bit of time in National City, San Diego. Now still a toddler, but then came back home, lived with my grandmother. That was more, my mother, sister, and me lived with my grandmother. That was more working class. And then lived in Southeast DC, Anacostia 16th and Good Old Road. Google it. The homes don't look that different from what they did then, but that was a rough area. Anybody from that area know it's still rough. Some people still around there, even though they got a creeping gentrification, said, yeah, it hasn't really changed. Some people still in that area. So, so I've been in a poor area, been around that attitude, but then I started seeing a difference when, I had to live with my grandmother, go live with my grandmother as a teenager. And, we were with, on the street. Now, she was retired, but had a lot of young professionals. So you had, young professionals kind of starting out. So you start seeing a difference, and you start seeing a difference there, because I remember they were going around, we like preteens and teenagers and comparing lawns and stuff. That's when I first started seeing elements of bougie, that like middle class attitude, that black bourgeoisie attitude, right? You started seeing elements of it there, but it was kind of a mixed neighborhood overall. Working class, young professionals, type of place young professionals would go to get started, like first houses and stuff. But all of them eventually moved, all of them eventually moved. Because I remember it was a big deal when my grandmother moved in. There was 2 moving trucks. And then they had like a street meeting and all of that, and everybody was there. They wanted to see what was in the house. But I started being exposed to it there. And then when I went to Archbishop Carroll High School, that's when I started being exposed to, that's a private school. You got to pay for it. So it was mostly working class, solid middle class, upper middle class. And that's when you start seeing differences and everything. And it was a behavior. It wasn't even about the money. Everybody could afford to go there. It was easier for some than others, but yeah, I started seeing that. Now, college is a little different, but then in college, you start seeing more white members of like the upper middle class. And then at American, postgraduate, that's what I was seeing the skying of the real 1%. Like I could call some names. I'd be like, oh, shoot. Oh, yeah, played football against him. Yeah, he was cool. Yeah. But the thing was behavior, lifestyle, what you looking at, where you live, everything of that manner. And there was an incident, I talked about it on here before, this within the black community. It was a party I went to Friday night, and then the next night went to another party, 2 different social classes. The party I went to on Friday night, it was more working class, more street, more around the way, down to earth type of people. They were cool. It was a pool party. It struck me that all the women, well, they all had little guts, even if they were on the slimmer side otherwise. But it was a definite vibe, definite energy, how they were interacting with each other. Okay. I was like, that's interesting. Like, seriously, like just a physical difference, like a rougher look. The men and women just had more roughness to them. Okay, and they were behaving, they, loud. It was something. I got another thing to kind of illustrate that too. But then, I'll get to that after I finish this part. You had, went to a party the next night. Now, this was upper middle class. These were professionals. These were like people, yeah, they were meeting, but also giving business cards, doing a little bit of networking, all of that stuff. On a physical level, they look totally different. Now, remember, I said the women at the first one, and the men look rough. The women, they were more on that, even if they were young, they looked like they already had that kid or two, and that belly poking out and everything. Went to the party the next night. It was at a hotel. Like the first one was at some rec center or something. And I had been invited by this young lady because I dealt with mostly upper middle class women. I'll get into that in a second, but yeah, I can still do the level. So I met this young lady. She invited me. She was like the only one there with a flat stomach. Anyway, went to the party the next day. Okay, all the women there, all the sisters there looked like black Barbies. And the dudes, they were all clean, masters of the universe. Didn't have that rough hewn. They didn't look street. Educated, all of that. And it was a different vibe how everybody even interacted. So I was like, man, that's something. I would say it's the difference between going to a more working class cookout, and then, going to a more upper class gathering. In fact, they showed a lot of that during that show that I used to review with Miss Mocha Angel, who is an AKA. I'm going to get into that AKA in a second. She's actually in the same sorority as Ebony Williams. So, but they showed a lot of it during Insecure. They showed a lot of it because I remember there was a scene with Lawrence and Tasha when he was messing with Tasha. She invited him to her cookout, and Lawrence is more upper middle class. They didn't start him off that way, but as they grew his character, you saw that's where he was from. He had a hard time fitting in, but that was a class thing. But then when he was dealing with Condola, is a woman who had the baby with, I remember there was a scene, they went to like a get-together, Thanksgiving get-together, and, you know, it wasn't like a cookout or anything, but I was like, okay, that was normal. They were interacting on a different level. And, you know, and I know some people will see, they'll look at me and they see me in a car video, don't check out anything else, and you know, I'm usually cursing like crazy. But like I said, that's just my background. I can do the levels like that. It is what it is. You know, it means I can move any place. I can hang out with the fellas on the corner. I can hang out with literally the corner boys, or I can hang out with the CEOs, the bougie dudes, the corporate execs. That's just me. Like y'all see me now, but then I can go to events like this. Oh, and the person I'm in the picture with, aka same sorority as Ebony Williams. And that really just came back to this thing. Now, a lot of guys getting mad at it, and, you know, it's funny. Some guys talking about, well, you know, those guys make 100,000 and stuff. She's a millionaire. But she has not only in that sorority, but she has college and law degree. She has a different mindset, even how she presents herself and everything, you know? And the fact of the matter is, when women, they don't really want to go down. I mean, on any race, really. You know, at best, they might have sex with some dude of a lower class if he's, like, sexy enough. But marriage, please. And I've seen some women, I've actually known some couples who tried it. It didn't work out because it's a different thing. And I'm going to tell you what, it works the other way. Now, like I said, that's why I always challenge people to dox me. People don't really know my background. You know, I'm kind of chilled now, but somebody who knew me back in the day, they'd be like, damn, Ron, what happened to you? I always say it's just spiritual reasons, and I'll leave it at that. But the thing is, even a man, because Kevin Samuels, rest in peace, he talked about that a lot. When he was talking about high value men and stuff. Remember, Kevin Samuels, he was a Kappa. He understood the mindset of men on that level. They just as picky. Because when I think about myself, when I look at, okay, ex-wife, the main women I've dealt with, mainly AKA, if not AKA Delta. So I've dealt with a lot of women on that level. They picky as shit. They ain't gonna, at best, they might dip down, at best. If the dude gotta be probably like real sexy to him and real quiet. They might dip down in the shadow world. That's it. But if you're talking about social, because when you move up in class, it's very much about status. It is very much about status. Like if you're talking about just pure relationship, survival, okay, yeah. Like a bus driver, they better off dealing with what Master Teacher BGS would call the 87 octane women. Those are more working class. They work in 9-to-5 jobs too. And in fact, really, Cousin Tito, he did a webinar for my private group. And he had pointed out, shit, they make good wifeys. They do. BGS said the same thing. He was at the webinar. Those are good wifey types. But when you deal with women on the Ebony K. Williams of the world, and let me be clear, I'm not mad at them, but they looking for somebody around that level, just to relate to, because I can understand that. I remember dealing with a woman, she didn't have that educational background, she wasn't AKA, she was very physically attractive, would have made a good mother, but when I was dealing with her, my aspirations at the time was to get into politics in D.C. At the time, when I was living in D.C. My aspirations, I had some connections. I had some Capitol Hill connections too, but we're going to get into it. Let's just say I know some people I can blame for some speeches back then. Yeah. Anyway. All right, I'll say this, too. I'll just give this. If I'm ever doing a Senate hearing or something, I would never be surprised, and I'll leave it at that. But, dealing with this woman real good would have made a good mother, but just wasn't at that same level. Because the men are just the same way. If you talk about, there's always this talk about high value men and stuff, but when you get some men on that level, they are serious professionals. They got dual degrees and everything. They very picky about who they gonna deal with. They ain't gonna just deal with a random woman. Like, you got these women out here who, they talking about, well, I want a guy who's 6 figures. I want that professional guy. All of that, 6 figures, making all this money. Those women got no chance. Those women have zero chance. Seriously. Because guys like that, they ain't looking for a doormat. They looking for a woman that can fit into their world. Shit, they looking for the AKAs and deltas. Seriously. They looking, if they black men, a successful black man, he looking for a truly successful black man. He got some degrees, professional. Shoot, he looking for somebody to fit into it. Everything. I've known guys on those guys. I remember, because I said I've dealt with some working class women. I remember I went to a party. It was a bunch of attorneys. I went to a party, brought this young lady with me. She was just like an administrative assistant, but she was cool. She was still cool. Like I said, I wasn't as picky, even though I still ended up dating a lot of 92s, a lot of AKAs, married to one. Serious relationships with women on that level. But if I met somebody. Now, I remember I brought her. They were clowning her. She ain't had that look. She ain't had that background. I was like, damn, you're being mean. But that's just all it is. And see, that's a major issue. That's a major issue in the community. And because nobody wants to talk about it. Now, yeah, there's a little bit more overlap because we, the way the families go, we know somebody. Where our classes tend to merge a bit more because we'll know somebody. Because a lot of those upper middle class professionals, they still got a Pookie and Ray Ray in the family or something. It's one of those things. It's very few black families on that level just have zero connection to some other classes. But the thing is, knowing them and then wanting to be in a relationship with one, it's going to be rare because honestly, most people, regardless of race, stay within their social class. Most people. And yeah, you're going to get some exceptions, and people are going to get in the comments and say exception. And I've seen some of those exceptions. And the divorce attorneys that handle the divorces, they got paid from it too. They got paid from the exceptions. Seriously, every time I see something like that, you thinking, yeah, okay, they got it. You hear from them later, oh yeah, we're getting a divorce. Just not on the same, you got to be on the same level. Because even when you're on the same level, there's always going to be issues. Because, it's that economic thing, the lifestyle, all of that, how you carry yourself, how you speak, your tone of voice, everything. Even how you speak. Now, when I had Miss Angel on here, like I say, AKA, she's a college professor. I've had several people with comment on her speaking voice, how she speaks, her speech intonation and everything. That's how deep it is. In fact, even myself, even though I can do the levels, if I ran into if a group of women on that level saw a car video, not the one I'm doing today, but my normal car video, they'll just shake their head, wouldn't give me the time of day. But if they saw me present myself like I did in those pics that I shared, it'll be a different thing. And then if I really hit them with my background, they'll at least get the conversation from them. But even then, you notice in that the pics I shared, all of this was gone. All of this was gone. I looked a certain way. That's how deep it is. Because even on physical appearance, and that's all it is. And now, with getting back to that Ebony K. Williams situation, she just expressing where she's at. A guy shouldn't get mad. Just stay in your lane. There's plenty of women out there. Whatever level you want, there's plenty of women there, and that'll be the better relationship. Men can't be in some fantasy about it because that class thing is major. In fact, that's the original meaning of the term hypergamy. A woman trying to move up in class, but only a small percentage can actually do that. And really, a small percentage only do it. And it's usually, and honestly, it usually be some woman trying to get some billionaire. It happens. It happens. But not to the same extent. And even when, sometimes you get some of these women, they get with an athlete. Those athletes are still the same social class that they were. They may have money. That's why I say it's not always money. That's why some of them get in trouble. Athletes, rappers, and all that. Their money don't make them that upper class. They wouldn't be accepted in those circles. Let's put it like that. They wouldn't be accepted in those circles. Wait a minute. Y'all wonder why I did that. I don't want somebody coming, oh, you film me. Whatever. Anyway, right? They wouldn't be accepted in those circles. And I'm going to tell you what, man. This is more serious. You know, I ain't curse as much, do my usual car wrong. But you got to just recognize class. You can't get past that. You can't get past that. And indeed, even when you get a lot of these women complaining, black women complaining, a whole lot of them just on that social, they ain't meeting somebody on that class. Now, if you talk about just pure numbers, if they dip down, but they don't feel like to dip down. But it still come down to the relationship. Because even the men, how many men want a bougie woman? Oh, no, let's just be real. Let's just be real. The way they carry themselves, the way they party, everything. You ever been to like those more upper middle class parties or get-togethers? I remember I went to one, still a bunch of attorneys, but some men and women, mostly attorneys and stuff, right? But it was like me, a young lady, and someone else. We were just more down to earth. We could roll in both circles, right? We were just clowning the rest of us. Like, damn, this party boring as shit. God damn. On that class level, they are very, when you talk about those bougie types, upper middle class, they're very careful about how they behave, how they speak, how they carry themselves. All that stuff, all those are factors. Now, her thing is, she just admitted to it, but if you talk to women, if you have an honest conversation with women on that level, they're going to say the same shit. They're going to say the same shit. And before somebody say, well, that other guy could be on there, not really. Maybe. Because they're also very aspirational. You got to be going somewhere with them. You tell them, oh, yeah, you just want to chill, have this regular job. Because I remember this one woman. She's on that upper middle class. I met her on the subway station, right? And she was very, very physically attractive. She had that total look and everything. She ready to leave her man. Because he didn't want to get a graduate degree in something. He was happy where he was, and she was ready to go. They very aspirational. You got to be going someplace for them. BGS talking about the 92 octanes. He said one thing with them, they'll try to push you to a higher level if you don't want to go, if they're even going to deal with you. So that's just their nature. And there ain't nothing wrong with it. It's just stay in your lane. But that's a major issue in these relationships. You can't lump them up. Seriously, anybody who's like really seen all the classes and how they act, you're going to see a difference. And like I said, even though I'm focusing on just black relationships in this particular car video, they the same thing in other communities. They worse in the white community. How often do you will very, very, very rarely see a man from the trailer park, a white man from a trailer park or a poor area dealing with some upper middle class or upper class white woman. Very rarely. Because they more strict about their class background. So don't think, oh, the whites doing. No. Anybody who's been through the levels, you'd be like, damn. Because even how I present myself, like I said, I had to switch up. If I'm going to go to an upper middle class event, all of this shit come off. Or at the very least get like because I usually cut my own stuff. At the very minimum, get a professional barber to take care of it, So, I mean, that's just a reality. Oh, that's all it was. It was a class thing. People think, and she's just expressing what millions of other women's expressing. Millions of men are expressing. Like I said, you get a truly high value man, successful black man, got a couple degrees. He got a law degree. He got a medical degree, MD, some PhDs, a Juris Doctor. That's a law degree. Shoot, they picky as hell. That's why I say these women talking about they want a 6-figure dude. I was like, what's your degree in? They say, no, you don't got the look. Seriously. That's how deep it is. And people need to just acknowledge the class thing. If we're going to have serious conversations, we got to talk about class. Because then say what's going on. And honestly, if you look at the class thing, shit, when you talk working class women don't complain as much. You get some complaints, but not as much. Because they good with that guy with the 9 to 5 and benefits. They good with him. The higher classes, shoot, you better you better be that millionaire or something like that. You better be running shit. That's just how it is. And if anybody want to bring, that's just this society. Like I said, you ain't gonna see that. It's very rare. Like if it's very rare, you're gonna see that white bus driver with an attorney. Not saying it don't happen. So if you hit me with some exception, okay, fine, but it's still gonna be rare. Because like I said, a lot of conflict, there's a lot of class conflict. A lot of class conflict that we're not calling it for what it is. But that's another conversation. Anyway, that's all I have for today. Really think about what I'm saying and then pay attention. Really pay attention. And if you're a professional degree sociologist, they'll confirm everything I just said. Don't try it from a lay opinion unless you can honestly say you've been with different groups. Okay? But it's just a reality. Anyway, that's all I have for now. Peace and blessings, y'all.